Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. I am your host, John McGinley. I'm joined by Ryan McGinley. First of all, our apologies for being a little bit late this morning. As you can see, we're not in our usual haunt. Ryan is out and about. He was actually at the SPFL fixture launch event this morning for us, so that's why we're a little bit chaotic this morning, Ryan, but we're all good. We're here to chat about Celtic and the fixtures. The fixtures have been released. We will get into that up full shortly. How are you feeling today, Ryan?
Things are good, yeah. It's a Friday. Happy Friday to you, John. Glad that the fixtures are out. We know roughly what the way the season is going to go fixture wise. We know where we're going to go first, who we're going to play at home first. So yeah, it's exciting times. It makes it feel real. And now we've got the summer. Yes, we've got everything to do with the summer, but you see the fixtures now. It's all real. Next season is very real. It's all about the preparation for that now.
Right, guys, we're going to throw up the fixtures pre-split, of course. There are post-split fixtures to come, but that will not get decided until well into next year. But we're going to throw up the initial fixtures here and have a little bit of a chat about them. Celtic season will kick off against St Mirren. Flag Day, August 3rd. It's going to be a 4:30 kick-off on a Sunday. There's already a bit of chat about that, Ryan, in terms of that's far from ideal for supporters, especially travelling supporters, but it takes away a bit of the occasion. You like Flag Day to be that big showcase event on a Saturday afternoon with the sun shining. 4:30 on a Sunday isn't ideal for that, is it?
Yeah, it's very much the TV deal is deciding or determining when Celtic play, to be honest with you. It's not ideal. As much as I like to be fluid with certain things in the modern football, I'm more of a traditionalist. I think that the champions should kick off the season. They have been the standard over the last season. They won first place. They got the trophy at the end of the season. I think they should be kicking off the season, but that's just my opinion. I think there'll be a full crowd there regardless. People will make the suitable arrangements to get to Celtic Park on that Sunday afternoon to see the flag being raised. And yeah, it's all focus on both pre-season and those games to come. The first game of the season against St Mirren. I think St Mirren will be sick of the sight of Celtic. They seem to play them all the time on, especially on Trophy Day, but Flag Day as well. You know, they were the last team to play against Celtic in the league, and then they'll be the first team of this season. So yeah, familiar foes, I would say.
Yeah, and you obviously eyes immediately get drawn to when we'll be playing Rangers and the
Yep.
fixtures around that. I think notable, obviously, the first match against Rangers is always in early September or the end of August. We knew that we would be travelling to Ibrox because that alternates from season to season. So there is a trip to Ibrox on August 31st. I think notably for me, Ryan, is that comes directly after, a few days after, the second leg of Celtic's Champions League playoff. So that's already a massive week that's sticking out to me in that early season. The second leg of a Champions League playoff to get into the league phase, and then days later, you're facing Rangers for the first time in the season, and all that entails. So this, I mean, I'm already looking forward to that week.
Absolutely, and there'll be people that are nervous about that, but I know that Brendan Rodgers will be thriving off that week. You know, what a way to start off your season, immediately getting thrown into big games. I look at the second game of the season, look at Aberdeen, the team that beat you in the Scottish Cup final, a chance for early revenge against the team that took that third trophy off of Celtic. The Rangers game away from home, you're really going into the lines then. Cue the Steven Gerrard quote, of course. But it's a big game, and that'll be a big week for Celtic because I think that really does set the tone for the rest of the season. Those two massive games against whoever they get the second leg in the Champions League to get to the league phase of the Champions League, and then you've got a Glasgow derby right after it. As much as some people will be apprehensive about that, I think those are the sorts of games that you sign for Celtic for, or those weeks are the sort of weeks that you sign for Celtic for those exciting, pressure-filled moments that really make or break you as a player.
I think it just reiterates that you want Celtic to get the best of their business done before
Without
that.
a doubt.
That could, it's one of the most important weeks of the season. It's frustrating that it arrives so early, but just with everything that entails, the money and the access to the Champions League is so massive. But we've covered that extensively, but I think it's just an added note that second leg now comes in a derby week. It adds a bit to it. When I see these fixtures, Ryan, I always look at the first, set of away games as well. So Celtic's first 5 away matches are against Aberdeen, against Rangers, against Kilmarnock, against Dundee, and against Hearts. The first 5 away matches go into to October. That's a tough little run of away fixtures to begin with. And again, it just reiterates Celtic are going to need to be firing from the off, as they were last season. Celtic's start to the season last year was phenomenal, and I think if you can get into October and you're looking strong and getting through all these away fixtures, it really sets up the rest of the season in terms of pushing for that title defence, doesn't it?
Yeah, as Brendan Rodgers says, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and it certainly is an ultra marathon this season. You can even add the 6th away fixture of the season into there as well. Dundee United at Tannadice, never an easy place to go for Celtic. So yeah, you can add all of those games together. Aberdeen, so difficult to go to Pittodrie, albeit they had a good result there last time, but it was rotated sides in preparation for the Scottish Cup final. But yeah, that game against Rangers sticks out completely. 31st of August. New manager at the helm of Rangers and Russell Martin. It'll be a pressure-filled environment for him as well, particularly after we see the sort of start to the season that he has. You've got to also take into account that Rangers could potentially have qualifiers as well as Celtic at that point. They could be pushing to get into the Champions League or the Europa League, depending on how their early qualifiers go. So it's going to be a pressure-filled environment for every team, not just Celtic. But I think these are positions to be and times to thrive upon as a player. You look at the fixture, you see who you're playing against in the opening couple of months and beyond, and you just look forward to the start of the season. Now you've got it on paper, now you've got something to work towards, and that's got to be the aim for Celtic.
I think a few people in the live chat, again, thanks for joining us, everyone. I won't I can't throw up your individual comments at the moment, just as we're talking through this image, but a few people noting that there is some away double headers there. So there's Dundee and Hearts in October, both away in consecutive weeks. Then there's St Mirren and Hibernian, both away in consecutive weeks in November. And in December as well, Livingston and Motherwell. You will note, though, that there are some home double headers that balance that out. Dundee and Hearts in December, Rangers and Dundee United in January, and then I'm pretty sure post-split there'll be another home double header. So that's just that's the way the balance of those fixtures work out. I don't think away double headers are ideal, but I mean, hopefully Celtic are just fully into the groove of that season. Notable, Ryan, what do you think of the December schedule this year? Obviously there's European games that add into that, and that will really busy that month up, but I've seen worse. Worse Decembers for Celtic. Yeah,
I look particularly at the festive sort of period. You've got Aberdeen at home, Livingston away, still a trip, and it's the plastic pitch, but it could be worse in terms of the opposition that you're playing against. And then eventually you'll have that game against Rangers in the new year. I've seen worse ones. You've experienced worse ones when covering Celtic. It's just the way the fixtures work. Every team plays against each other the same amount of times over the course of the season. In this regular season, anyway, you bring in the split and you've got the top 6 and the bottom 6, obviously. But every team has to play against each other. Doesn't matter about I'm not one for making excuses for Celtic. I think they've seen the fixtures, they know what's required of them, and if they're good enough, they'll go out and win those games, regardless of where they're played and regardless of the condition of the pitch that they're playing on as well.
Henrik McLarston, kind of summing up your point there, we shouldn't fear anyone in the league home and away. I do agree with that, yeah. I just always, it's just when the fixtures are announced and I see the full list, I just sometimes look at some of their fixtures and go, that looks like a difficult wee run. But it's also, it's not played on paper either. And in the midst of December with the brittle weather, it's hard to think of right now with a heat wave engulfing Scotland. But in the midst of December, that Livingston Motherwell between Christmas and New Year, just before Rangers, isn't going to feel too pretty. Away on that cold Livingston pitch, the fake pitch, and then away to Motherwell. That is sticking out to me as a wee bit tricky over the festive period. But as Henrik McLarston says, and as plenty of people in the live chat are saying, there's nothing to fear for Celtic. It's more just Celtic settling into the task and the demands and the rigours of the season as it comes. And that's why you need a big squad, and that's why we're always talking about ensuring you've got the best squad, a good versatile squad that can get you through those tricky periods. Ryan, you were at the SPFL fixture launch this morning. How was that? Who were you chatting to, and what was the vibe around that?
Yes, I was speaking to Charlie Mulgrew and Stephen Naismith, both quite popular pundits in and around the Scottish football sphere. Charlie Mulgrew was talking about everything, to be honest with you. He's a very good speaker, speaking about his managerial time at Celtic, etc. Also speaking about Celtic and Cameron Carter-Vickers. All those quotes will be available at 10:30 tonight on the Celtic Way website once I write it for the paper as well. Stephen Naismith was also talking. They're both talking about Kieran Tierney, incidentally. Was asking him about Kieran Tierney and what his impact is going to be in and around the Celtic team, what he'll bring, not just to the team, but to training as well, and the intensity that he'll bring, another leader coming into the fold. So yeah, it was a good wee event this morning. Good to speak to them in person, up close and personal. And yeah, looking forward to putting them on the website when they're available tonight and on other nights as well.
Just to go quickly back to the calendar, Big Dom saying don't forget we have the Champions League qualifiers alongside some of these fixtures. So I'm just going to throw up the graphic again and just tell you about some of the dates that Celtic do have around these games. So we mentioned it at the start of the show, but just to reiterate, Celtic's playoff qualifier occurs in August, and the first leg will take place on the 19th or 20th of August, and the second leg will take place on the 26th and 27th of August. So fill that in on the calendar in front of your screen. The draw for that takes place on the 4th of August, so the day after the St Mirren match. I believe Celtic have utilised this kind of dispensation you get for the qualifiers. I think the SPFL and the SFA introduced this to give Scottish teams a better chance of qualification, and I think that's why there's a gap in August, unless I'm mistaken, Ryan. But Celtic's first leg of the playoff qualifying round will occur on the 19th or 20th of August, which is a decent bit after that Aberdeen match, so it just gives Celtic a little bit of extra preparation in that regard.
I would also throw into the equation the potential for a League Cup game in between the Aberdeen and the Livingston game, because there's usually a game either home or away in the League Cup early doors, so that could be potentially something to. As we say, these are it's always like that term. It's subject to change at all points due to the way that the seasons go. These things can be interchanged. It's good that they've got that dispensation now that they can change if possible. To help their qualification to what is hopefully the league phase of the Champions League. That's got to be the aim, and I think you see that with some of the transfers and some of the transfers that are getting spoke about as well. They're doing this in preparation for that game. It's, for me anyway, and I know we've spoken about European football and how important it is for Celtic. For me, it's the biggest game of the season. I think it actually overtakes the Rangers game in terms of importance. Is that double header in the Champions League to qualify for the league phase? It's absolutely massive for Celtic, both financially and for the supporters as well, to have that interest. Yes, you get the league phase and the Europa League, but it's a whole different story in the Champions League. Celtic like to pride themselves as a Champions League team. The only way they can do that and continue to keep up that accolade is by playing in the Champions League. So they've got to get through that qualifier to do so.
And again, just taking everyone back to the calendar, I know I'm throwing this up a lot, but it's just to have it in front of people while I talk through some of this stuff.
Handy for me as well, John.
Yeah, so the Champions League phase runs from September to January. You know, it's the extended one, as of course we saw last term. It starts on the 16th to 18th of September, and match day is on the 20th of January. We obviously don't know whether Celtic are going to be in the Champions League or the Europa League, but there will be matches in September, October, November, December and January. So again, that just gives you an idea of where those European fixtures will be plugged in. A lot of people know that anyway, but it's just to tick off that box. And of course, there's no January break this year, as there wasn't last year, just with the calendar tightening up and being filled up by all sorts of competitions. There just isn't going to be a January break going forward, so it will be another grueling test. Rodgers on multiple occasions, which Tony mentioned on multiple occasions, to refer to it as an ultramarathon, and I think that's going to be the case again this season.
It certainly is, and I think there's a wider discussion that needs to take place in football, just to bring my own personal opinion into it, about the amount of games that players are playing over the course of a season. Now, I know that the Club World Cup doesn't affect Celtic as much as we would like to see them in competitions like that, and if they were involved, then we wouldn't complain whatsoever, because it's more exposure for Celtic. But there are a lot of games getting played over the course of a year. You bring in the international games to the fold, an extended Champions League for Celtic as well. It's a lot of strain on the body for these players. So I think it's important that Celtic bring in the required squad depth this summer, and the necessary squad depth this summer, to accommodate that, because there's going to be a lot of games. There's going to need to be rotation throughout the season. If they can do that and safeguard some of their biggest assets, then they'll be all the better for it moving forward.
Celtic did make a signing yesterday, but it was a B-team signing. Ryan, Isaac English joins, young defender from Greenock Morton. Greenock saying Morton saying that Celtic had been scouting him for a period of months, and he gets added to Stephen McManus's side. Obviously not one for the first team immediately, but he'll be given the room to kind of develop within Celtic system, potentially go back out on loan or something like that. But yeah, a young defender in the building yesterday.
Yeah, and by all accounts, he's pretty highly rated by everyone that's watched him. I was actually speaking to somebody that was watching him over the course of the season yesterday, and he says he's a really, really highly rated young player, good on the ball, good defender, 17 years old, so got plenty to develop. But the signs are looking good for this player, hence the reason why Celtic have signed him. I actually also read on a different report that this was the first transfer fee that Morton have received for a player in over 10 years, which is incredible to think about that. A lot of Celtic's the way that they function is due to transfer fees. So the fact that Morton have got their first transfer fee in 10 years for a player is some going. So one for the future, definitely one for the B team, but I can't think of anybody better to work under than former Celtic captain Stephen McManus, who already has a track record of working with young players and bringing them through to the first team. Look at Francis Turley, he's made his debut. Jude Bonner's made his debut, and Sean McArdle, most impressively, has made his debut in a couple of other appearances following that. So there's a track record there. Hopefully, Isaac English can be one of the next ones to break through.
I mean, until there's like a sustained player who is playing week to week, I think there's going to be a lot of cynicism around the B team, which is fair enough, and I kind of do subscribe to that. And until we start seeing a sustained kind of push from a player, it only needs to be one or two players. It doesn't need to be a whole batch of players from the B team. But there's definitely a little bit of hesitation about how viable the B team project is, and Celtic's transition from the academy into the first team. But yeah, Isaac English joined up. Callum Osmand, Ryan, Lennoxtown yesterday, visiting the club. Looking like he's going to be signing imminently.
Yeah, I mean, if a player's rocking up at Lennoxtown, it basically means that the deal is all but done. We get told by a good source yesterday that he was around Lennoxtown, so it's a matter of when rather than if Osmand. But I was reading what some of the Fulham supporters were saying about him. They were replying to some of my tweets yesterday when I was posting the news, and they seemed pretty downbeat about him leaving the club, a player that they see potentially one for the future, but an exciting young talent that's been scoring goals for the Premier League 2 side. A young player to hopefully occupy that third choice role. Maybe that could have ramifications for Johnny Kenny's Celtic career. Maybe he might move out on loan. That's my sort of judgment of that situation or on that position. But an exciting young player, Wales under-17 international. He'll be looking to hopefully get into the under-21s team for Wales and maybe push through in a couple of years to come to the actual national team. I mean, that's further down the line. Of course, he needs to break through at Celtic. But an exciting young signing and one for the future. And it seems as if Brendan Rodgers has got what he wanted with a young striker that can shadow maybe one or two other strikers and the likes of Maeda and Ida at the moment. He was talking about Rocco Vata potentially being that player last season. I remember early doors last season he was saying that Vata could potentially be that player that looks over that shadows the players and can potentially come in games. Perhaps Callum Osmand can be that player.
So again, it's important to note that Callum Osmand, he doesn't actually have any senior appearances in his career at all. But the Premier League 2 has been a decent, we're talking about youth systems and youth setups. Premier League 2 has been a decent kind of development ground for plenty of young players coming through in England, and Callum Osmand's performed well at that level. You can't read too much into youth football, of course, but at 19, it looks like he's ready to take that kind of next step and perhaps play regular minutes. And we need someone to lighten the load in that regard, coming on as a substitute, being that rotation option. I think that third striking option will be important. And so I'm happy to get him in the building, especially if he's rated and Brendan Rodgers likes him. Brendan Rodgers knows that market very, very well. Celtic have extensive scouting down there as well, so you hope that he's got the profile and got the stuff that Celtic need, and Rodgers likes what he sees,
Yeah, I still think that Celtic need another striker to go with Callum Osmand.
Yeah, of course.
Like another, maybe more in the mould of Kyogo. You've got the physical or physical can the norm of Adamida maybe could use it a little bit more in his game. I'm looking for that connector from maybe midfield to attack, somebody that could potentially play the false nine role and connect the whole team. Because I think a lot of goals are going to come from the wing positions, especially if Daizen Maeda's going to play on the left, potentially a new signing on the right, if not Nicholas Kuhn. So I want a striker to be involved in all of that, but I think it's important that they score goals as well. I would like another option at striking position, but I would rather they get that. I'd rather they take their time and get that position right rather than go out and just sign a striker for the sake of it.
David Stocker asking, is there any pics of him at Lennoxtown, or was it just hearsay? I'd like to say it wasn't pictures or hearsay. It's actually our information, but it's information we received yesterday. We're pretty confident in reporting it. There's no actual pictures of him at Lennoxtown, but we believe that Callum Osmand was at Lennoxtown, so finalising that move to Celtic. And again, people get frustrated because these links rumbled on, and these players that we're talking about were first linked with Celtic when I was off on holiday last week, Ryan. But these things take time to just get over the line, and we are expecting movement on Nygren and Osmond over the next few days or over the next week or so.
Yeah, and it's all about negotiation as well. These things aren't, it's very rare that a team is just going to accept the first offer presented to a player, or a player is just going to accept the first contract. Negotiation is key in all walks of life, and especially so in football. These things take time, and Celtic do have time at the moment. We're in, just coming towards the end of June, middle of June, end of June. So we've got plenty of time on our hands to get these players sorted. I'm reasonably pleased with the business that they've done and what's in the pipeline just now. It's just all about being a little bit patient. I think it's more difficult because there's no football on just now, and people are hyper focused on transfers, which is understandable, and I used to be the same. But with the inner workings of the club, etc., you've just got to be patient for these players to come through the door. I'm confident they can get all the players that are needed. It's
also about the club have considerations around media and promotion, and they like to get all their ducks in a row, and when a player will be unveiled, and lining all up that and making sure that the player is around and available. They might have prior commitments, they might be in the process of moving. There's all sorts of considerations, right? And it's not as simple as just going, right, he's signed on the dotted line, bang out the news. It's a little bit more complicated than that. But as we know, when names go out there and it seems like a deal is getting done and it kind of drags on a bit, people do get a bit grumpy about it as well. Mm-hmm. Dennis Jameson also making the point, Ross Doohan to be announced as well. We believe so. And again, that's another name that has been around extensively. That name's been around for a lot longer. Going into weeks and months, but by all accounts, it seems that Ross Doohan will also be in the building and add into that goalkeeping department. So there's a few things pending, and I guess the frustration is it's not quite announced yet, so people can't get too excited about it. But I think we at the Celtic Way are quite confident about these three deals. The reason we don't really talk about too many other players is because we don't have that confidence in that. But I think in the case of Osmond, in the case of Benjamin Nygren, and in the case of Ross Doohan, I think we're pretty confident that this is going to go through eventually. Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you can get 4 or 5 players in the door before July, I think Celtic are doing really good business at the moment. And they're doing all these deals, a lot of them in free transfers or development fees or a couple of million. They're bringing in bodies, but they're saving money as well. And that means, and I made this point yesterday, that means that they can prioritise other positions and put more money into positions that are more pressing. They can go and get that star quality player for 6, 7, 8 million potentially, or even go as far to break their transfer fee again, or their transfer record fee. It's early on in the summer at the moment, and I think patience is just required. As much as you see business getting done elsewhere, it's important to just focus. Some of these teams need business more than Celtic do. Celtic won a double last season. They won the league. Yes, there are positions that they need, not replacements, but strengthened. But on the whole, it's a strong Celtic team. And yeah, I think just some trust is required and those higher up. I know people struggle with that sometimes, but I think the signs are looking good for this summer. There's also an element of someone just put in the chat there, I'm not going to get ecstatic or excited about a third choice keeper, and that's valid. Sometimes transfer news isn't sexy and exciting, Ryan, and sometimes it's just a bit about filling up the squads, filling out the numbers. And that's the work that still needs to be done, and we're going to talk about it. But it doesn't mean that Ross Doohan's not going to be Celtic's marquee signing this summer. I don't think anyone needs to worry about that. But it's just fans just want everything all at once, don't they? And listen, I'm the same. I do this professionally, but I still want to see Celtic make their business early. And
as much as it's not a so-called sexy signing, I think Ross Doohan is an important signing because of the homegrown quota and the club trained quota as well for the Champions League. That's going to be vital for Celtic in terms of accommodating those bigger players coming through the door. If you've got somebody that can tick both of those boxes, and you've got to remember that Kieran Tierney does the same, so that's two players that can fill those essential criteria for the club. It means that you can maybe move players on that are in there for the sake of it, that are maybe just there to fill the numbers in terms of those quotas, actually bring in a bit of quality. You've got to remember Ross Doohan just made his international debut for Scotland as well. So Celtic could potentially have 3 international goalkeepers on their books at one time, and Schmeichel for Denmark, Sinisalo for Finland, and Ross Doohan for Scotland. So that strength and depth is clearly there for the goalkeeping position if Doohan comes through the door. And I think it's an important one, as is Tierney. But the thing is, Tierney's important on the pitch just as much as he is off it for his leadership role, but for the actual player that's coming back, particularly in his prime.
There's plenty of other work, obviously, having to go on as well. Celtic will have to move on a raft of players. I think we did a few videos on this a while back, but There's plenty of Celtic players on the books that are either returning from loan and don't really have a future, or just aren't perhaps at the required standard that Celtic need to consider to move out. Especially, and we've mentioned this before, but the kind of clutch of players that came in 2023 to sign long-term contracts to 2028, they're needing sorted out as well. So there's plenty of work that isn't going to excite, plenty of transfer work that isn't going to excite everyone on a day-to-day basis. Ryan, you're heading off on holiday now, aren't you? You're heading off for the next couple of weeks. So you're off, Tony's off, I'm going to be here. Am I going to be on my own? No, I'm going to be here with plenty of people next week. I'll be here. Hamish will be around. Josh will be around. Kevin will be around. We will have people on. We've got a few experts on some of the transfer business coming up on the channel as well. So we will be full steam ahead on the Celtic way, even without Ryan, even though Tony is also off on holiday. Are you looking forward to having a little break, Ryan?
Definitely, yeah. I'll have a break, but I'll still be checking, and I'll be on the Celtic Way, of course, on the website, checking to see if anything has transpired. As much as I like to switch off, you've still got that fondness towards Celtic. At the end of the day, you're always checking to see if anything's happening. Much as you want to turn off, you can't fully 100% because you've got that, that fondness that you want to keep going even when you're on holiday. Looking forward to shutting off my laptop for a little bit, maybe be off the briefings for a wee bit. But yeah, wee bit of a recharge and back in and ready for the rough and tumble of the transfer window in the start of the season.
Before we go off, I'm just going to bring back the fixtures. I know we talked about this at the top, but just to kind of reiterate and recap, Celtic will play St Mirren on August 3rd to kick off the defence of their Scottish Premiership title. That will be the flag day. It's at 4:30 on a Sunday on August 3rd. And yeah, the first match against Rangers is at Ibrox on August 31st. Some of these dates later in the year are pending just with TV and other various stuff, but that is the main shell of Celtic season right in front of you. All that was announced this morning, and we do look forward to it all. Again, if you're wondering when Celtic's playoff qualifiers is, that those come in August, and they will come ahead of the Livingston and the Rangers matches. The first leg will be on the 19th or the 20th of August, and the second leg will be on the 26th or the 27th of August, and the draw for that playoff round is on August 4th. So plenty to look forward to. It's 20th of June as we stand. Celtic are going to be returning to Lennoxtown not too long in the future. They will be back in training from the first week in July. And then the first pre-season match, Ryan, believe it or not, is not far away at all. It's actually 2 weeks today on the 4th of July against Queen's Park. So that's how quickly Celtic will return and get back to action here. That's remarkable when you think about it in that terms, isn't it?
It flies in, and you think that it won't every season or every off-season, but it does. It flies in, and automatically Celtic are back. You'll get those Lennoxtown interviews from the players, maybe some press conferences here and there. You'll hear from the manager as well. As much as it's a nice break, you're still itching for the football to get back, because that's what we both enjoy doing. It's what we love doing, talking about the football, talking about the fixtures. Having the fixtures there makes it all seem real, and it won't be long until we see Celtic again.
Yeah, it's at Queen's Park on the 4th of July. It's Cork a few days later. Then Celtic are off to Portugal. I think they're playing a couple of matches there, one of them behind closed doors, one of them against Sporting. Then they're back to play Newcastle. Then they're off to Italy to play in this Como Cup. I think the first match will be against Ajax, and the other match will be against Como, or the Saudi team whose name I've just forgotten. It's going to all kick off and ramp up very, very quickly So there's plenty to look forward to. Ryan, we'll let you go off and enjoy your holiday. I know you've got a few bits to finish before you do head off, so we'll let you finish all that on a Friday, on this beautiful Friday, sunny all across Scotland.
Starting to rain now, so...
Oh, well, that's Glasgow for you, Ryan. That's Glasgow
4 seasons
for you.
on a Monday.
We can't help that. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, everyone, live. Thanks for joining us in the comments if you're checking us later. As I say, we will be back on Monday with plenty of more Celtic chat. So